I decided to retire because I didn't know if I had the capacity to go for another Olympics or even if it's going to be worth it. I thought I needed to get back to my job and just lead like a normal life, focus on my professional career. But that took me 2 years to decide on retirement because I kept on going back to the boat to row and I hated it. I remember I was just crying all the time in the boat. And then I decided to tell myself, all right, let's give 1 week off or 2 weeks off, not rowing. And then when I'm not rowing, I'm always thinking about being back in the boat. So it was just this phase where I'm like, I wasn't sure of myself. And without rowing, I felt like I was no one. And when I was working, so it was a lot of like office work. I was in an office from 9 to 5. I wasn't like focusing on my work. So my mind wasn't present. Um, so it was a really hard 2 years for sure. I was talking to my mental skills coach then. And of course, the goal is for me to find an identity or a purpose outside of rowing. So that's why I went to triathlon, but it didn't fill the void. How I finally made that decision was, how did I make that decision? I traveled to America because I wanted to just find myself, just doing some soul searching.
Wow, so there's a couple of things I want to unpack there. First of all, after the Olympics, you were still training, and you mentioned even while you were doing it, you were crying and not feeling happy. So was it that you were burned out, or what was the emotional part like that was making you not happy while you were doing the sport
I
itself?
think it's definitely burnout. I felt like I didn't give enough time to like reset before I hopped in the next season. But then there's also no strict rules about what is this time period to get back to a sport. So I think it's just more so like I feel that I am nothing more than just a rower. I felt like my life just revolves around rowing, and without rowing, I'm no one. So it's definitely like an identity loss issue that I was experiencing.
And so now, looking back and being older and more mature and more experienced, do you think there's anything you could have done differently during that time to to make that process faster or to get through it more easily?
Yeah, I think I'm going through it right now as well. This stupid retirement phase. But of course, now I'm like enjoying it more. I think if I had a chance to go through that again, it's more of don't stress over it. I think I was just too putting too much pressure on myself to make a commitment, like a hard on, yes, I want to be a rower, or yes, I don't want to row. It doesn't have to be black and white. I learned that. It's just the hardest way to learn that there's no black and white in everything. That it's okay to row without competing, that it's okay to not compete and like just have fun in other areas of your life. And if I also had a chance to go back and redo that whole process, make a decision and freaking stick to it. Because I think that indecisiveness was the one that lengthened that whole retirement process to 2 years that made me like go in and out of the boat.
And so one thing you mentioned is this identity, right? That you were a rower, Olympic rower, competitive rower, national rower. What was when did you find an identity outside of that that can be clearly defined in a title or a sentence? And how long did that take? Or what did it morph and evolve, or what happened?
Yeah, I think that was when I met my now husband that I realized that I am more than just a rower. I can be a girlfriend, I can be a fiance, I can be a wife, I can be a sister, I can be a friend, I can be a daughter. And I don't necessarily, rowing is just part of my whole identity, and rowing is not my identity, not my whole identity. Yeah, that was definitely hard for me to comprehend because rowing was my life. Um, but realizing that no, it's not. It's just part of my life. It's just something that I do. Even if I don't row, I won't die. I'm still a being. I'm still human.
Definitely. So that sounds like it was great timing and the right person for you to meet.
Would love for
So yeah, I'm originally from the US. You might be able to have heard that from my accent. So you went to New Hampshire and you were coaching there, and then you met your now husband. Did you make the decision to move there fairly quickly? What was the adjustment like? What was that whole phase of balancing, trying to find yourself at the same time as figuring out, like, oh, am I going to work here or work there, continue at my existing job, or what?
Yeah, when I was traveling and like doing that whole soul searching thing, I already left my job in Singapore, so I was unemployed. So it was a pretty like easier decision on our part to see whether we move to Singapore or move to the US. So he proposed to me 3 months after we met. So it went very
Wow.
quickly. It went very quickly, and we knew that it was US we wanted to be in, because also if I do end up being like finding a career in sports or in rowing, it makes more sense to be in the US because it's bigger, more opportunities here. So it went very really quickly. We got married a year after we met. But of course, you move from US to Singapore, like moving is always very hard. You're leaving everything behind. But like you said as well, I'm grateful to find someone who's very understanding, who was able to live with me being in that still in that transition of, even though I don't see myself as a rower, I still see myself as an athlete. And I remembered I was training for marathons, and if I don't train, like I will literally cry when I miss a day of training. I'm like, what is like now thinking about it, I'm like, what is wrong with me? But at that point in time, I was still in that phase where training is important, training is life. So he definitely, yeah, he definitely went through the highest and lowest points, even though, like, it's funny because he wasn't there during that retirement period, which I would say the lowest point in my life, but he got me out of it for sure.